feeling like you're on a foreign planet, changing the landscape and absorbing the sound, which happens because air is trapped inside the spaces created by the crystalline flakes. It traps the sounds and muffles it. But snow can be noisy as well, as in the sound of an avalanche that comes suddenly and deadly. And when it melts in the spring, it can be deadly as well when it comes in the form of floods. But snow is much more than these incredible, dangerous, and beautiful facts. Snow is also that wondrous moment that greets a child when they peer out that window at dawn. Before them, the world is transformed. All white, wonderfully white, blanketed in a soft foam that changes the trees into strange shapes, all being silent and calm. In that child's mind arises a warm realization, a most glorious discovery. The silver treasure of the winter months has arrived. It comes in the form of two words, two wonderful, sweet, and simple words: snow day. I think of my experience as a 10-year-old kid when a snow day came down. I would be thinking, no, I won't be going to school today. I won't have to hurry to get dressed and gobble down breakfast and rush out the door to catch that noisy, chaotic, crowded bus barreling down the road. Why? Because there'll be no bus today. All the buses are under their own blanket of snow somewhere in a municipal lot north of the city. Today will be different. Today I'll stay home. And then soon options for the day begin to come to my mind. I could roll right back into bed, or I could sneak downstairs and grab my bowl of cereal and go sit in front of the TV, claiming for me the right to watch cartoons like I do every Saturday. But the snow, the unusual, beautiful snow, beckons, so my brother and I rush downstairs, gobble down a Pop-Tart, put on our boots and coats, and rush outside into the crusty snow. It's as if we're on another planet. We build snowmen, we build a snow fork, we build piles and piles of snowballs. We run and we roll and we bury ourselves into the snow until it seeps between our scarf and our coat, and in the crease of our wrists and into our boots. But no matter, we play until we're exhausted, which is a very long time, reinforced as we are by the anticipation of hot chocolate that will inevitably waiting us inside. Thank you, snow. Thank you, and thank you, and thank you. And then we grow up. I treasure those memories. And I dip into them each time I see the world blanketed by snow, especially when it's unexpected, and I savor that feeling and I love the sight, at least until the shoveling or the driving somewhere where I just think I have to go gets in the way. Makes me grumpy, a meteorological Grinch. Damn snow, it's so inconvenient. It can freeze the whiskers off a brass monkey. As in our next reading, I'll ask our first group of readers to come forward: Kate, Steve, John Marshall, and Tema.
They say if you want a snow day to wear your pajamas inside out. It is cold. The bitter of the winter winds a story. It is the colder weather when the truck drivers sing, it would freeze the whiskers off the brass monkey. It is the bitterest whining of the winter now. Well, we might sit down, have a cup of coffee apiece, and talk about the weather. We might look back on things that happened long ago, times when the weather was different. Or we might talk about the things ahead of us, funny things in the days to come. Days when the weather will be different again. Yes, a cup of coffee apiece. Even if this winter weather is bitter, the truck drivers are laughing. it would freeze the whiskers off a brass monkey.
Hey, this is with the first authentic colder winter, I think. This author once visited my native London and made the interesting discovery that his name is Sid Harris. Yeah, we said, what's your name, Governor? He said, Sid Harris. But he thinks he's David Sedaris, and this is called Let It Snow. Winters were frustratingly mild in North Carolina, but the year I was in 5th grade, we got lucky. Snow fell, and for the first time in years it accumulated. School was cancelled, and 2 days later we got lucky again. There were 8 inches on the ground, and rather than melting, it froze. On the 5th day of our vacation, my mother had a little breakdown. Our presence had disrupted the secret life she led while we were at school. And when she could no longer take it, she threw us out. It wasn't a gentle request, but something closer to an eviction. Get the hell out of my house, she said. We reminded her that it was our house too, and she opened the front door and shoved us into the carport. And stay out, she shouted. My sisters and I went down the hill and studied with the other children from the neighbourhood. A few hours later, we returned home, surprised to find that the door was locked. Oh, come on, I said. I rang the bell, and when no one answered, we went to the window and saw our mother in the kitchen watching television. Normally, she waited until 5 o'clock to have a drink, but for the past few days, she'd been making an exception. Drinking didn't count if you followed a glass of wine with a cup of coffee. And so she had a goblet and a mug positioned before her on the countertop. Hey, we yelled. Open the door, it's us. We knocked on the pane, and without looking in our direction, she refilled her goblet and left the room. That jerk, my sister Lisa said. We pounded again and again, and when our mother failed to answer, we went around the back and threw snowballs at the bedroom window. You are going to be in so much trouble when Dad gets home, we shouted. And in response, my mother pulled the drapes. Dusk approached, and as it grew colder, it occurred to us that we could possibly die. It happened, surely? Selfish mothers wanted the house to themselves, and their children were discovered years later, frozen like mastodons in blocks of ice. My sister Gretchen suggested that we call our father, but none of us knew his number. And he probably wouldn't have done anything anyway. He'd gone to work specifically to escape our mother. And between the weather and her mood, it could be hours, or even days before he returned home. One of us should get hit by a car, I said. That would teach the both of them. I pictured Gretchen and her life hanging by a thread as my parents paced the halls of Rex Hospital, wishing they'd been more attentive. It was really the perfect solution. With her out of the way, the rest of us would be more valuable and we'd have a bit more room to spread out. Gretchen, don't line the street. Make Amy do it, she said. Amy in turn pushed it off on Tiffany, who was the youngest and had no concept of death. It's like sleeping, we told her, and you get a canopy bed. Poor Tiffany. She'd do just about anything in return for a little affection. All you had to do was call her Tiff, and whatever you wanted was yours, her allowance, her dinner, the contents of her Easter basket. Her eagerness to please was absolute and naked. When we asked her to lie in the middle of the street, her only question was, where? We chose a quiet dip between 2 hills, a spot where drivers were almost required to skid out of control. She took her place as 6-year-old in the button-coat coat, and we gathered on the curb to watch. The first car to come by belonged to a neighbour, a fellow Yankee who had outfitted his tyres with chains and stopped a few feet from our sister's body. Is that a person? He asked. Well, sort of, Lisa said. She explained that we'd been locked out of our house, and while the man appeared to accept it as a reasonable explanation, I'm pretty sure he was the one who told us. Another car passed, and then we saw our mother, this puffy figure awkwardly negotiating the crest of the hill. She didn't own a pair of pants, and her legs were buried to the calf in snow. We wanted to send her home to kick her out of nature, just as she kicked us out of the house. It's hard to stay angry at someone that pitiful looking. Are you wearing your loafers? Lisa asked, and in response, our mother raised a bare foot. I was wearing loafers, she said. I mean, really, it was there a second ago. This was how things went. One moment she was locking us out of our own house, and the next we were rooting around in the snow looking for a left shoe. Forget her, she said. It'll turn up in a few days. Gretchen fitted her cap over my mother's foot. Lisa secured it with her scarf, and surrounding her tightly on all sides, we made our way home.
This is by Wallace Stevens. It's titled Snowman. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time. To behold the juniper shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same place. For the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself, beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is.
This is Moon by Jessica Spengler. Despite all evidence to the contrary, my childhood did not consist entirely of looming threats and deep-seated fears. I had as much of a sense of joy and wonder as the next kid. In fact, one of the more vivid memories from my childhood is a very comforting and wondrous memory. The memory of the night I realized that the world was a magical place. It was a cold winter's night in Indiana, and a cold winter in Indiana is very cold indeed. Living in a small, safe, idyllic, rural neighborhood made it possible for me, my brother, and our best friend Mike to run around at all hours of the night with nothing to fear but the neighbors' unchained dogs. And fear them I did, of course, but that's another story. It had snowed a lot, as it does in Indiana in the winter, and everything was covered with a downy blanket of white. When I think of this night, I tend to think of us being out at midnight, but I'm sure it wasn't really that late. I suspect that my brother and I were spending the night at Mike's house that night. When we spent the night at Mike's house, we tended to get up to things. I don't know what drove us out of the house that night. I imagine we were beckoned by the prospect of so much clean snow all to ourselves. The street of our neighborhood was entirely iced over, all the way from the top of the street by our house over the bump, a repaired portion of the road, no bigger than a tiny speed bump stretching across the street, but big enough to earn its own capitalized name in a child's neighborhood vocabulary. Past Mike's house, past Jack's house, Mike's house, Joy's house, all the way down to the circle. The cul-de-sac at the other end. Everything a solid sheet of ice. The ice was too much to resist, and we ran up and down the street, slipping and sliding, as if we were ice skating, taking running starts, and then stopping suddenly to see how far we could glide before skidding to a halt or falling over, gasping and laughing in the bitter cold air. The sky was perfectly clear as only a winter sky can be, endless crystalline black, tacked up with layer upon layer of stars that sparkled so coldly and so invitingly at the same time. The most striking thing about the sky that night was the full moon. I can still see how it hung in the sky, suspended jovially at the end of the street, brighter than all the street lights and house lights put together, brighter than the sun's, or so it seemed. It was this moon that made the night magical, because as the moonlight reflected off so much snow and ice, it made the world light up. The snow shone as brightly as the white face of the moon, as if the earth itself were lit from the inside. Everything glittered and glowed as bright as daytime. Everything was padded in soft white and wrapped in crisp silver and dusted with glowing blue. I had never seen a night like that. I don't think I've ever seen one since. There was no dark to be afraid of, and it was silent, as if we were the only people in the world. Our voices were gently cushioned and absorbed by that layer of snow, and the moon seemed to smile in approval. Such brilliant moonlight was alien to me. The night was like nothing I had experienced before, and yet I felt completely safe and at home. There is no more to this childhood memory than that. The moonlight on the snow, the silence of the sleeping world, our laughter as we slid along the icy street. I was in awe of the world that night, and I was perfectly happy.
Thank you, readers. We'll now have the second movement of Vivaldi's Winter. The words that he wrote that accompanied this are as follows. Very simple. This is a very different feel than the first movement, you'll see. To rest contentedly beside the hearth while those outside are drenched by pouring rain. Yesterday at exactly 12:11 p.m., the Northern Hemisphere was at its maximum tilt away from the sun. From today onward, while the temperatures will continue to fall, even though today might convince you otherwise, the days will start getting longer. It takes a while for the temperature of the earth to catch up to the amount of sunshine we get each day. So our next set of readers I'd like to invite up will focus on the theme of darkness and light. Don, Irene, Scott, Bill, and Nick. Come forward.
This is entitled Beauty by Arthur Dobrin. One summer, long ago, people were working in the fields. They dug and plowed, weeded and watered so that they might eat in winter. They worked from sun up to sunset, all except one. Every afternoon, she went to a hillside, took out her wooden flute, and played to the mountains and the trees. Everyone was angry with her, for they felt she didn't do her fair share of work. When winter came, they moved into a cave and lived there in the cold and the dark. The days were gloomy. They complained, grew tense with one another. Then one day, they heard a song, as if a bird were in the cave. The cave seemed to glow with summer light. They thought they could see the blue sky and feel the warm sun upon their skins. It was the song of the wooden flute. It was the beauty of the song made by the musician, a beauty that they all could hear, beauty enough to take into spring.
Winter Solstice by J. Barry Shepherd. Nothing stands still, least of all the measuring sun for all the way this time of year. She seemed to linger round horizons far too long, while that river no one steps into twice might be stepped into fairly firmly. With some sense of permanence, these late Advent frigid mornings, nothing stands still. And yet, between one frosted breath and its successor, one creaking wing flap and the next of that ancient crow, scavenging against the whitening sky, a stopping can take place, a holding operation. Looking around and catching breath before the next whatever that can save the day, season, year, a life from tedium and transform it into Te Deum.
Happy winter solstice, everybody. A warning ahead of time. I'm going to go off script. This is not going to be. I gave you a little warning. I'm going to be mostly on script, but I feel a need to extemporate. Anyway, I'll make it brief. I'll be respectful of your time. But, this is Robert Ingersoll, who I'm a big fan of. Anyway, if you ever read him, that's good. If you haven't, do it. Anyway. This is on the solstice, and I'm gonna probably massacre some of these names. I'm not great at pronunciation. Some of these names I have not come across a whole lot. But anyway. Again, we celebrate the victory of light over darkness, of the God of days, of the host of night. Again, Solomon is the victorious over Delilah. Hercules triumphs once more over Omphalia. In the embrace of Isis, Arceus rises from the dead. The scowls of Typhoon is defeated once more. Again, Apollo, with erring aim, with his arrow from the quivering of light, destroys the serpent of the shadow. This is the festival of Thor, the Baldur, and of Prometheus. And again, Buddha, by his miracles, escapes from the tyrant Baldur. This is really hard name. Okay, I'm doing my best here. Zorisur folds the king. Bacchus laughs at the rage of Cadamus. And Christina eludes the tyrant. This is the festival of the sun god, and as such it is observant to be universal. This is the day of the first religion, the mother of all religions, the worship of the sun. Now I'm going to go a little bit off. I'm going to be an infidel to the great infidel. I'm going to suggest that that is a title for Ingersoll. But Shakespeare did go a little bit different track on this and suggested that we should not worship no more the garish sun, but love the heavens of the night. And in that vein, I want to honor a couple of people that have darker pigmentation, who have Nelson Mandela, who died recently, and the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. This will be very brief. I know I'm going off script. But Nelson Mandela, I think he offered us the wisdom that hate of our fellow human beings often hurts the hated as much as the hated. That's one of the prime things I get from him. And Dr. Martin Luther King, darkness cannot be driven out by darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism. I prefer mutuality, and walk in the and not walk in the destructiveness of short-sighted selfishness. That's Martin Luther King. Thank you.
Winter Solstice, a poem by Carol Paul. Winter solstice, changing of seasons to the starting of winter. Candles and evergreen, sweaters and gloves and snow. Shorter days and longer nights when the air is so clear that you can reach out and touch a star. Winter solstice, closing the old year, beginning the new, when everything is fresh and clean and we can start again to set new goals, make new friends, find new loves, and rekindle old ones. Renew life for another year. Winter solstice, lighting the candle of hope for ourselves, for our friends, for others around the world who no longer have the strength to light one for themselves.
This is a Deep Winter Affirmation Prayer by Edwina Peterson Cross. The year ends in darkness with absence of light. Days shorten and shadow enshrouded. Long, still, ebony hours of night, silent and dimly cold clouded. Yet the voice of a dream affirms meaning in night. With purpose, the darkness is right. It whispers the chill, stark absence of light is a metaphor searching for life. In the deep cold of winter, in the length of the night, 9 candles glow bright from afar. The sun returns with brief, bright solstice light. Earth is lit by the hope of one star. Each soul, as the seasons, turns like a wheel, a sacred cycle each of us make. When things seem the darkest, the circles reveal that the light may be ready to break. And so we believe that the darkness will end, that the warm wind will swallow the cold, that the world will be something we can comprehend as the seasons expand and unfold. Once our heart understands the nature of change, it is free to wait for the dawn. To know warmth is not rare, affection not strange. In total darkness, the light is not gone. The heart speaks a promise the mind cannot break, that there is nothing that cannot be mended. Never a nightmare from which you can't wake, nor a hurt that cannot be transcended. Darkness can be washed away by the light, disillusion by laughter undone. Depression can be replaced by delight. Despair bleached to hope by the sun. Even bone-cracking winter ends with new birth, as the world is rekindled with green. There isn't a stain on the heart or the earth that cannot be finally washed clean. Though our world is still threatened by darkness and pain, and sometimes we feel frightened and small, light is still stronger, its strength will remain, and love is the strongest of all.
Thank you to the readers. This is a song that I played a couple of years here for the solstice. For the reason being, I love the strong, quiet, slow strength that it has, and echoing the idea that we have to stay with each other through the night. Sometimes darkness can be made light, sometimes it can't in a real way, but being together, we can make it feel like there's light. This is a Cyndi Lauper song. All through the night, I'll be awake and I'll be with you. All through the night, this precious time when time is new. Oh, all through the night today, knowing that we feel the same without saying. We have no past, we won't reach back. Keep me forward all through the night. And once we start, the meter clicks. It goes running all through the night until it ends. There is no end. All through the night, stray cat is crying, so stray cat sings back. All through the night, they have forgotten what by day they lack. Oh, under those white street lamps, there is a little chance they may see. We have no past, we won't look back. Keep me forward all through the night. And once we start, the meter clicks. It goes running all through the night until it ends. There is no end. Oh, sleep in your eyes is enough. Let me be there, let me stay there a while. We have no past, we won't reach back. Keep me forward all through the night. And once we start, the meter clicks. And it goes running all through the night until it ends. There is no end. Forward through the night, and once we start, the meter clicks, and it goes running all through the night until it ends. There is no end. We'll now come to the illuminating part of our program. While we can't stop nature from shortening our days or bringing cold weather, we can choose to spread light and warmth in our heart, in our homes, and in our communities like this one at 1906 Rittenhouse. We're going to start by spreading the light from one candle. Bertha, would you be willing to do honors? Come forward. Bertha is the member of the Ethical Society most blessed by birthdays, matriarch of 4 generations of Ethical Society members. Bertha will light this candle, and then I'll ask other people to come forward and carefully and slowly light from her candle or from the community candle. And then you'll see there are candles along the sides, on the tables, along these sides. And our job will be silently and calmly to get all the candles lit. Would you light this one? Please come forward and get a candle if you'd like to help.